The chow tent was packed shoulder to shoulder. Heat trapped beneath canvas, air thick with diesel fumes, sweat and burned coffee. Metal trays clattered against folding tables as tired hands reached for food that tasted the same every night. A young female cook moved through the narrow aisle with a dented pot balanced against her hip. Her apron was smudged dark with grease and dust. Her head stayed down. Her steps were steady. Two infantry soldiers leaned against a support pole near the drink cooler. Gravy duty, one muttered with a crooked grin. The other snorted, spoon warrior. They watched her pass. Bet when things go bad, kitchen staff run first, the first added quietly. A few nearby soldiers heard it. One smirked, another looked away. No one corrected him. The cook slowed for half a step. Not enough to draw attention. Not enough to start anything. Then she kept walking. A couple of eyes followed her as she moved deeper into the tent. Someone noticed the way her shoulders stayed squared. Someone else noticed she didn't flinch. Her face remained calm, blank, but in her eyes there was something unreadable, not hurt, not anger, something older, something that didn't belong in a chow line. She reached the far table, set the pot down, and resumed serving as if nothing had been said. But she had heard every word. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Military and Veteran Stories so you never miss these true tales of courage. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? Her name was Specialist Mara Hayes, 27 years old. Officially, she was a food service specialist assigned to the base kitchen of a remote desert outpost that most maps barely bothered to label 6 months earlier. She had arrived on a supply convoy that no one paid much attention to. No ceremony, no welcome speech, no curiosity, just another body added to a place already full of tired faces. Mara came from a small Appalachian town tucked between ridge lines and coal roads. The kind of place where people learned early how to work with their hands. The kind of place where silence wasn't awkward. It was normal. Her father had been Army infantry. He never talked much about his service. Only small fragments here and there. Enough to plant something inside her. Enough to make her enlist young. Official paperwork showed nothing remarkable. No commendations. No combat ribbons. No specialist schools listed, just kitchen duty. Before the reassignment, she had served with another unit. Where, why she moved, none of that appeared anywhere. The record simply showed a transfer from one line to another, from one quiet place to another. On this base, Mara existed in the spaces between movement. She was up long before sunrise, before generators reached full hum, before patrol briefings, before boots hit gravel. She unlocked the kitchen alone, started coffee, checked inventory, lit burners, chopped vegetables in steady, even strokes. No headphones, no music, just the soft tap of a blade and the low rumble of distant engines. She prepped breakfast for hundreds, served it without comment, washed trays after, scrubbed counters, mopped floors, then started again. By the time most soldiers finished their last cigarette and turned in, Mara was still wiping grease from steel surfaces. She slept fewer hours than almost anyone on the base. No one noticed. During the day, she spoke only when spoken to. Yes, Sergeant. No, Sergeant. Copy. Nothing extra, no small talk, no jokes, no stories. At tables, she never sat with groups. If she ate at all, it was standing near the back wall. Quick bites, eyes drifting toward doorways, always doorways. She didn't lean against walls, didn't slump, didn't sprawl in plastic chairs like exhausted soldiers tended to do. She stood balanced, centered. A habit so natural she probably didn't realize she did it. Physically, Mara didn't stand out. Lean frame, narrow shoulders, brown hair pulled tight into a no-nonsense bun, old boots that had been resolved at least once. A faded unit hoodie worn under her stained apron on cooler nights. Her uniform followed regulations. Nothing more, nothing less. No flashy patches, no morale insignia, no personalized gear. Her rank sat where it belonged. Clean, unremarkable. To most people, she looked exactly like what her record said, a cook, someone who passed trays, someone who stirred pots, someone who stayed far from danger. Some soldiers were polite. They said thanks when she handed them plates. They nodded in passing. Others treated her like background furniture, something to step around, something that existed but didn't matter. A few were openly dismissive, not cruel, not aggressive, just casually disrespectful, the kind that stung more because it was effortless. Mara never responded, never rolled her eyes, never sighed, never muttered under her breath. She absorbed it, stored it, let it pass through her like wind through an open door. Inside, she carried things differently. She didn't think about proving anyone wrong. She didn't fantasize about confrontation. She didn't build speeches in her head. She focused on tasks, on motions, on staying steady. When the bass grew loud, she grew quieter. When people joked, she listened without reacting. When tension rose, her breathing slowed. Under her shirt, against her skin, rested a plain steel necklace. No engraving, no shine, just a simple chain and a small flat tag. She never showed it, never mentioned it. But when stress crept in, her fingers found it. A brief touch, a subtle press. Then her hand dropped back to her side. No one noticed. One evening while serving dinner, a private stepped forward and glanced at her apron. "You ever leave this tent?" he asked with a half grin. Mara placed a scoop of rice on his tray. "Yes," she said. He chuckled. "Didn't think kitchen staff got issued outside." A couple of soldiers nearby snorted. Mara slid the tray toward him. "Next," she said. The private took his food and walked off, still smiling. No argument, no correction, no explanation. A sergeant standing nearby watched the exchange. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Mara continued serving. Her posture never changed. Her hands never shook, but her fingers brushed the chain beneath her shirt just once. Then she let go. She moved to the next soldier and the next invisible, uncomplaining, unremarkable, exactly how everyone believed she was. The first sign that the day was going to be different came just after noon. Not inside the base, not inside the chow tent, but somewhere far beyond the outer wire. A dull thump rolled across the desert, low and distant, more felt than heard. A few heads turned. A few conversations paused. Then everything resumed. Someone muttered that it was probably training rounds. Someone else said it was nothing, but radios began to crackle more often after that. Short bursts, quick acknowledgments. Voices kept low. Patrol schedule shifted. Watch rotations tightened. Extra bodies were assigned to towers. The base commander didn't announce anything. No briefing, no formation, just a quiet elevation of posture. Soldiers felt it anyway. They always did. By late afternoon, rumors started drifting. Insurgent movement north of the ridgeline. Possible probing fire. Locals seen moving where locals didn't usually move. None of it confirmed. All of it enough to make shoulders tense. Inside the chow tent, dinner prep continued. Steam rose from metal pots. Knives hit cutting boards. The smell of reheated protein and scorched oil clung to the air. Mara worked her station without change. She portioned. She stirred. She wiped splatter from the counter. Her face showed nothing. Two infantrymen leaned near the beverage cooler, watching the line move. One nodded toward Mara. "Man, if stuff kicks off tonight, I'm not trusting my life to a spoon," he said. His buddy snorted. "Yeah, cooks and clerks going to be the first ones screaming for medevac." A couple of nearby soldiers chuckled. Not loudly, not cruel, just enough to show agreement. Mara slid another tray forward. Didn't look at them. Didn't pause. Didn't acknowledge the comment. A corporal stepped closer to the serving line. He tilted his head, studying her. "Hey, specialist," he said. Mara glanced up. "Yes, corporal," he smirked. "You even know how to hold a rifle?" The question hung in the air longer than he probably intended. For a second, no one laughed. Then, someone behind him let out a quick bark of amusement. Another followed. A ripple moved through the line. Mara placed mashed potatoes onto a tray, smoothed them flat, added vegetables. Her breathing stayed slow. Even she didn't answer. The corporal waited, expecting something. A shrug. A joke. An embarrassed smile. Nothing came. He scoffed. Figures. A medic standing near the condiment table shifted his weight. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked down at his boots. The laughter softened, turned into awkward chuckles, then into nothing at all. Mara kept working. Her hands never stopped moving. Her shoulders stayed squared. Her gaze drifted briefly toward the open tent flap. Then back to the trays. Outside, wind pushed sand along the hard ground in thin sheets. The watchtower swept slow arcs with mounted optics. Barrels tracked nothing. Everything at the same time. Another radio transmission crackled somewhere near the entrance. Short-clipped. No one raised their voice. No one asked questions. The atmosphere thickened. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. Like pressure building inside sealed walls. Mara felt it. She always felt it. She didn't know why. She didn't try to explain it. She just recognized the sensation. The way the air seemed heavier. The way small sounds became sharper. The way people shifted their feet more often. She counted heads as she worked. Not consciously, not deliberately. It happened the same way breathing happened 1, 2, 3, 4. She noted which tables were full, which were half empty, who tended to sit near exits, who always faced inward. Her eyes flicked toward the storage building, visible through the tent opening. A stack of supply crates partially blocked the view. She noticed the angle. Noticed the gap between two crates. Noticed how that gap lined up with a narrow stretch of open ground between the building and a HESCO barrier, a blind slice. She didn't stare, didn't linger. She reached down and nudged a trash bin a few inches to the left with her boot. Casual, unremarkable. The shift opened a clearer walking path. No one noticed. Dinner service continued. Trays slid, boots scuffed, plastic chairs scraped. Another distant thump rolled through the evening. This one slightly closer. Someone muttered. "That ain't training." Someone else said probably nothing. No one sounded convinced. The generator hiccuped. Lights dimmed. Came back. Dimmed again. Then went out completely. The cow tent plunged into shadow. A few surprised shouts broke out. "Easy. Watch your step." Emergency lights kicked on seconds later, bathing everything in dull red. The generator coughed. Wind finally roared back to life. Overhead fluorescents flickered, stabilized. Engineers sprinted past the open tent flap toward the power shed. One of them cursed loudly. Someone laughed nervously. Good timing. Mara never stopped moving. In the red light, her face looked almost colorless. Her eyes reflected faintly. Not wide, not panicked. Focused. The corporal from earlier shook his head. "Whole base going to fall apart and we still got cooks pretending this is a 5-star restaurant." Another private leaned toward him. "If shooting starts, she should hide in the freezer." The private smiled, waiting for laughter. None came. A couple of soldiers glanced at Mara. Then looked away. The private smile faded. Mara placed bread on a tray, passed it forward. "Next," she said. Her voice was quiet, steady. The line moved. Outside, wind carried faint popping sounds, not loud enough to clearly identify, not soft enough to ignore. A gunner in one tower shifted his stance. Another tower rotated its weapons slightly farther left. No alarms, no sirens, but tension continued stacking. Like sand piling against a door, Mara finished a batch of trays and stepped back to refill a pot. Her eyes swept the tent fast, subtle, not scanning like someone searching for threads, more like someone checking pieces on the board. She noticed who had body armor on, who had rifles slung, who had pistols only, who had nothing but cutlery and plastic trays in their hands. She noticed a young private near the far table whose hands shook as he drank water. She noticed an older sergeant whose jaw stayed clenched. She noticed the medic from earlier still avoiding eye contact with anyone. The necklace pressed briefly between her fingers. Then her hand dropped. Another radio transmission cut through the tense noise. This one louder. "Stand by. Possible contact outside perimeter." Conversations died. Not instantly. Not dramatically. They just faded. Someone swallowed. Someone coughed. Someone scraped a chair back too loudly and winced at the sound. Mara didn't move. She didn't run. She didn't tense. She simply shifted her weight slightly toward the open side of the tent. Her shoulders aligned, her stance narrowed, barely perceptible. If anyone had been watching closely, they might have noticed. No one was watching that closely. The corporal glanced around, suddenly less amused. "Hey," he muttered. "You hearing this?" His buddy nodded. "Yeah." Silence settled heavier than before. Not peaceful, not calm, loaded. Mara slid one last tray across the counter. Her fingers brushed the metal edge. Old, solid, reliable. Something felt wrong. Not because of any single thing, not because of any clear signal, because too many small things lined up. Too many details leaned the same direction. She didn't know what was coming. She didn't know when. She didn't know where. But the feeling pressed against her ribs all the same. The kind of feeling you didn't argue with. The kind you listened to. Mara kept serving, but inside something old and patient had already woken up. Mara knelt near the end of the serving line with a rag and a small bucket. Someone had dropped a tray. Gravy strayed across the concrete floor and a crooked smear boot prints dragged through it. No one volunteered to clean it. Mara did. She lowered herself onto one knee and began wiping slow, circular motions. Her sleeve slid up several inches. Just enough. A faded scar ran along the inside of her forearm. Not fresh, not dramatic. Old, pale against sun-darkened skin. Too clean to be accidental. A private standing nearby noticed it. His eyes flicked to the mark, then to her face, then away again. He didn't say anything. Mara finished wiping, wrung out the rag, and stood. Her sleeve fell back into place. The scar disappeared. Dinner service wound down. Plates stacked. Utensils clattered into bins. Soldiers lingered longer than usual, half eating, half listening to radios clipped to vests. A young soldier near the entrance struggled with his rifle. The bolt stuck halfway back. He tugged harder. Metal scraped. Mara saw it from across the tent. She didn't rush over. Didn't draw attention. She stepped closer casually. "Lock the bolt to the rear," she said quietly. The soldier looked at her. "I did." She shook her head once. "Magazine out first, then lock bolt, then inspect chamber, then release." Her words were calm, precise, in the exact sequence. The soldier hesitated, then followed her instructions. The jam cleared immediately. He blinked. "Oh," Mara nodded, then walked away. The soldier stared after her, not impressed, not grateful, confused. He glanced at his buddy. "Since when cooks talk like armorers?" His buddy shrugged. "No idea." Neither pursued it. Near the far side of the tent, a radio crackled. "Raven 2, hold position." Mara's head turned a fraction, barely noticeable. Her eyes sharpened, not wide, not alarmed, focused, like someone had just heard their name spoken in a crowded room. The radio continued to pry Raven to acknowledge. Mara's jaw tightened just slightly. Then her expression smoothed out again. Neutral. Blank. She returned to stacking trays. No one noticed the change. The kitchen area behind the serving line was quieter now. Most soldiers had finished eating. Mara carried a bin of knives back to the prep counter. She laid them out one by one. Same direction, same spacing, handles aligned, blades facing inward. She didn't think about it. Her hands simply moved. When she picked up a knife, her grip was firm but relaxed, thumb placed high, wrists straight, no unnecessary tension. She wiped each blade, set it down, moved to the next. A civilian contractor passing through paused briefly, watched her hands, then continued walking. Near the supply shelves, an older supply sergeant stood checking inventory forms. Gray threaded through his hair. Lines etched into his face from years of sun and squinting. He glanced toward the prep area, saw Mara. His gaze lingered longer than it should have. He frowned slightly, not in anger, not in disapproval, more like puzzlement. He looked at her face, then at her posture, then at the way she stood while cleaning. Something tugged at his memory. A shape, a pattern, a familiarity he couldn't quite place. Mara looked up and met his eyes. Not challenging, not submissive, just present. The sergeant's frown deepened. He opened his mouth, closed it, looked back down at his clipboard. Mara returned to her work. Outside, the wind picked up. Sand hissed against tent walls. The sky darkened toward evening. The usual jokes didn't return. No loud laughter. No exaggerated complaints about food. Conversations stayed low, short, functional. People ate because they needed energy, not because they wanted comfort. A few soldiers stepped outside to smoke. They didn't wander far from the entrance. Watchtowers continued slow, methodical sweeps. Red dust drifted through orange light. Mara finished cleaning and carried her bucket toward the back. She paused near the open flap. Just long enough to look out. The desert stretched away in rippling heat and shadow. The horizon glowed red. Not a peaceful red, a heavy one. Like a warning, she didn't sigh, didn't shake her head, didn't show fear. Her fingers slipped under her shirt, found the plain steel necklace, pressed it once between thumb and forefinger. Then she let go. Night was coming, and something in her knew it would not be a quiet one. The explosion hit so close that the ground seemed to jump. Not a distant thump, not a muffled rumble, a sharp concussive crack that slammed into the perimeter and rolled across the base like a physical force. The chow tent shuddered. Metal trays rattled. Someone screamed. A half-second later, the alarm began to wail. Clong rising. Relentless. Red emergency lights snapped on automatically for a heartbeat. Nobody moved. Shock locked bodies in place. Then everything broke at once. Chairs tipped. Trays crashed to the floor. Soldiers reached for rifles that weren't in their hands. Some sprinted. Some ducked. Some froze exactly where they stood. Outside, automatic fire snapped in short, angry bursts. A second explosion detonated farther down the perimeter, closer than the first. Dust blew through the tent opening in a dirty cloud. Mara dropped the tray she was holding. It hit the ground and shattered. She did not scream. She did not gasp. She did not hesitate. Her body moved before conscious thought could catch up. A soldier near the entrance stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen chair. His rifle slipped from his hands and skidded across the concrete. Mara stepped past him and grabbed it. The bolt was half open. Jam. Her thumb slapped the magazine release. Magazine out. Bolt locked. She racked it once, twice. A round popped free and clinked against the floor. Magazine back in. Bolt released. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. Mara turned toward the op.